is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Good morning, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and this is another episode of the program, The Bridge, airing live on US Arab Radio and live streaming on Facebook. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Ayah Galal is an Egyptian American, and she is the first TV reporter, Hijabi TV reporter in Connecticut, and she was also selected by Connecticut Magazine as one of the most influential 40 under 40. She has a very interesting story to share about her own career and how she got to this point and her love for television since her very early days, and a lot of advice and tips for young people who are interested in a career in television journalism. Welcome to the show, Ayah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khamis. I'm so excited to be here with you and talk a little bit about my journey. And I'm just happy to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you with us as well. And because you are a TV reporter, I want you to start by introducing yourself more fully and more completely to our listeners and viewers, please.
Absolutely. My name is Ayah Galal. I am a TV news reporter based in Connecticut. I work for the CBS News affiliate in Connecticut, WFSB Television. So we're located in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, which isn't too far from Hartford, the capital, and I'm the Hartford bureau chief. So I cover everything in the capital city of Connecticut, from government to crime, education, health, and I've been with this current station for a little over 4 years now. So I started there back in 2018, and I've been there ever since. And like I said, I cover everything in the city of Hartford, and it's been quite a journey, but I'm excited to talk more about my journey with you today.
Absolutely, and would love to hear more about this journey. So let's go back to your early childhood. As a child, what were your dreams? What were your hopes? I remember as a child, for example, I wanted to do many things. I wanted to be a pediatrician, an air hostess. I wanted to be a university professor, which this one I did. And I wanted to be also a television anchor woman. This one did not come true in a fullest sense, but, I do have the program, The Bridge, and I do have my, media appearances here and there. But the TV reporter or TV anchor woman was actually one of my dreams. So I was wondering if from a very young age and early childhood, that this whole idea of being a television reporter was actually one of your own dreams or ambitions.
That's a great question. And the answer to that is no. I didn't always know I wanted to be a TV news reporter or TV anchor. And a lot of people are usually surprised by that. And the full truth is, when I was little, I thought I wanted to become a doctor and go into medicine. And it's funny, though, because I grew up in a house where the TV was always on. So we would eat dinner 6:30 p.m. and watch NBC Nightly News. So I was always interested in what was happening around the world. But when it was like high school time, almost like college, I thought I wanted to go into medicine, what many Arab children are kind of conditioned to think they need to do to be successful. But I took advanced placement like biology and calculus and physics, and I was miserable. So my parents told me, you need to do something you're going to enjoy and something you're going to be happy doing. So I always had a passion for public speaking, reading, writing, learning about things happening around the world. I was kind of always interested by the news. And in high school, I did the morning announcements for my high school. So I always had that kind of interest, but I didn't always know I wanted to go into journalism. So once I learned what I did not like, which was, a lot of the STEM related courses, I was like, okay, let me focus on what I do enjoy. So I ended up majoring in journalism and actually double majoring in political science. So again, I was always interested, especially in, around the Arab Spring and the revolution in Egypt. I was very interested in what was happening in other parts of the world and things happening outside of my little bubble of Connecticut, because I was born and raised in Connecticut. I've lived in this state my whole life, but I was always interested around what was happening elsewhere in the world. So that love for the news, I think, was always in there inside of me. And then I ended up double majoring journalism and political science. I got very actively involved in the TV news station at my college at Quinnipiac University. And then, one thing led to another. I did my first internship at the ABC News station in Connecticut. I enjoyed that a lot. I got a really close look at what it's like being in a newsroom, producing news content every single day. It was a very fast-paced environment. But then I, was a senior in college and starting to think about, finding my first TV news job. And as exciting as it was, I was also very nervous. And while I wanted to be in front of the camera, whether it was a reporter or anchor, I was also getting nervous because I hadn't seen other hijabis really on the news, especially in the US media. So I decided to take a safer route. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to work behind the scenes as a producer. And so I started applying to producing jobs, and I was hired at the station I interned at. But deep down, I really wanted to be in front of the camera, out in the field. So I had some very supportive colleagues at my old station, WTNH in New Haven, Connecticut, and they pushed me to try to get an on-air job. And, after a lot of hard work, I was able to land a job that was a mix of behind the scenes producing and in front of the camera work. And now fast forward a few years, here I am. And so I'm reporting on TV every single day. I occasionally get to fill in anchor as well. So this Saturday, I will be anchoring, filling in for our morning news anchor. So it's a great mix. It's an exciting industry. Every day is something so different, but that's something I really love about the field of news and journalism and TV news.
That's great and very exciting indeed. But what was the turning moment, the moment when you really started to gather yourself and say, I now have the courage and I'm now ready to actually face the audience and be on camera rather than behind the camera or behind the scene? What was this one turning moment for you?
That's a great question. And there's one pivotal moment that I'll always remember. And it was when I was at my old station. I was working as a producer. So, the producer is responsible for building the newscast, writing scripts, creating graphics, timing out the show, things like that. And I had a conversation with one of the main anchors there, Ann Nyberg. She's been at Channel 8 for years and years and does a great job. And we were sitting down, we were having a conversation, and I told her, yeah, eventually one day I'd love to be in front of the camera and be a reporter. And she looked at me and she said, well, what are you waiting for? And I'll always remember that. And she had a point. I was like, yeah, one day I'd love to do that. She's like, what are you waiting for? And I was like, you know what? That's when it really hit me. What am I waiting for? So having someone who is a veteran in the field, just having faith in me, encouraging me was a big help. And I had other supportive colleagues who told me, you know what, look, it's not going to be easy, but we think you can do it. And so I put together a resume tape, and I would go in on my days off. I'd go in on my weekends. I would shadow other reporters to get a better understanding of what life was like out in the field and, what kind of skills you need to be a TV reporter. And, a few months later, I was able to land a job where I was doing on-air reporting and some producing. So when I look back, and I think I faced a lot of self-doubt, and I was kind of my own worst enemy in some ways. And I was like, you know what? I don't think any news director will want to hire someone who wears the hijab, someone who's visibly Muslim on air. Again, growing up, people like me didn't report on, US television. They didn't anchor newscasts. We, when you turned on the news and you saw Muslims, it was usually a very negative news story or something like that. So I did face a lot of self-doubt, but I also knew we need change. And sometimes you have to be the change that you want to see. So with the help of a supportive network and a lot of hard work, I was able to, pull through and land my first job and have, the support of a news director who saw a lot of potential in me. So I'm grateful to my boss, Keith Connors, who saw me and thought, you know what, I think she's worth taking a chance on. And like I said, it hasn't been an easy journey. It's been a bumpy road, but I'm glad I pulled through and I persevered. And I hope by sharing my story, I can remind others that they can do what they want to do, and how they look or how they worship shouldn't get in the way of doing that.
Absolutely. And I hope that's going to be one of the takeaways for some of our listeners and viewers, especially the young audience who are going to be interested maybe in this kind of career. They want to pursue a similar career path and they're like, oh, but I'm wearing a hijab. Television is not a very welcoming space. And let's be very clear and very frank here. Television traditionally has not been a very welcoming space for hijabi women, not just in the West, but you'd be surprised to know that even in some Arab/Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, there were some rules and regulations that banned women who are wearing the hijab from appearing on the screen as anchor women or, television reporters. And, this rule has, fortunately, and thank God, has changed in a number of countries, in most countries, but it has not been an easy path, for women who are wearing the hijab. So I do understand your self-doubt, and I do appreciate your frankness and openness about it. And if there is one takeaway here, it's really the supportive network of peers and the one mentor who believed in you and believed in your own ability. I think that makes all the difference in the world. But let's be very frank and open, Ayah. I mean, as a hijabi woman doing this kind of work, right? Whether inside the station, whether on the streets, dealing with the general public, asking people questions, maybe approaching the police, the authorities, different departments. Did you experience any kind of discrimination in your day-to-day reporting?
Yes, and I'll be very honest. Like I said earlier, it hasn't been an easy journey, especially in the beginning. I would say the beginning was the most challenging because as excited as I was to have landed my first on-air job, in the beginning, I got some nasty emails, messages on social media, people saying, why are you reporting the news? Take that thing off your head. I'm going to switch stations. I remember I have screenshots of them, just awful Islamophobic emails of people saying, I'm not going to watch your news station anymore. I'm changing the channel because I don't think someone like you should be reporting the news. I remember one email, I got a lengthy email from a man who threatened to go to CBS News headquarters about me. And so it's very unfortunate, but it is a reality that I faced. And I'm very grateful. I can say, alhamdulillah, things have gotten better. I think now I do have a very supportive network of viewers, people who have seen my work, and they see that just because I wear hijab, that does not make me any less capable of being able to tell a story fairly, of being able to tell a story impartially. I'm going to still do my job and ask questions and be fair in my reporting. And I think people see my work speaks for itself. And I'm going to, no matter what I'm covering, whether it's a crime scene, whether it's a story related on the pandemic or whatnot, I'm going to put forth my best work. I'm not going to insert my opinion. I work for a local, smaller TV news station where we take that objectivity very seriously. And it was definitely difficult in the beginning. And, I would say occasionally things happen here and there where someone might say something nasty, or I think it's social media and online where people can hide behind a screen and say nasty things. That's where it's the worst. But I have to say, over the years, I have gotten some extremely supportive messages and messages from people who say, I have my daughters watch you because you're an inspiration to them. And I tell them that, you could be whatever you want. Look at Ayah. She's on the news, and mothers who have come to me. I remember running into a mother at the airport. I was catching a flight somewhere and she was so excited. Her twin daughters got to meet me, and she just told me how much of an inspiration I was to them. And so as difficult as it can sometimes be, I try to remind myself of the positive impact that I can have and the representation that we haven't had for so long. Like during Ramadan, I was able to cover a really nice story on a Ramadan iftar in the city of Hartford, the first one that City Hall hosted. So, and as a Muslim reporter, I have that background knowledge of why this celebration is so important, why the holy month of Ramadan is so important. So I think I'm a firm believer. I say this all the time in interviews, but I do think that newsrooms and TV stations, the on-air talent should reflect the diversity of the communities we serve, because at the end of the day, we're telling stories in these communities, and our on-air talent should reflect the diversity of these communities that we serve. So it's been a bumpy ride. In the beginning, it was really difficult, but I'm just very blessed and fortunate, I could say. I have so many positive and encouraging viewers, and now the good has definitely outweighed the bad. And sure enough, there are some, negative people here and there, but I have thicker skin. I have some really supportive viewers, some really supportive colleagues, and I'm so grateful for them because they've just helped me along the way. And I'm just very grateful things have gotten better. And I think we're headed in the right direction. We'll get there eventually. I think slowly, it's going to take some time, but I think we are making some progress in the industry.
Excellent. And we are so proud of you and happy to have you on screen. I think that's really an inspiration and a role model for so many young hijabi women when they see you on the screen to feel, inspired and motivated to follow the same path. We'll come back to this very interesting and lively discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3.
Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, we don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Were you recently at the emergency room, urgent care, or at your doctor's office being told you need a hand, wrist, or elbow specialist? At the Katranji Hand Center, we offer the latest techniques in hand, wrist, and elbow care. From sports injuries to work injuries to everyday hand, wrist, and elbow problems, the specialists at Katranji Hand Center are here to get you back on track. Call us in East Lansing today at 517-332-4263 or visit us at KatranjiHandCenter.com to schedule your appointment today.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. And this is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're discussing today a very nice topic with Ayah Galal, the first TV reporter, Hijabi TV reporter in Connecticut, and talking about her journey and her own inspiration and her own role model to other young women who are also wearing the hijab, who want to become TV anchor women and reporters as well. Ayah, any job in the world has its own pros and cons, positive sides and negative sides. And I believe yours is no exception. If you can shed some light on some of the positives and negatives, some of the advantages, disadvantages, strengths, limitations that face you day in and day out as you do this important but also challenging and inspiring job every day.
Absolutely. I'll start with the positive because there are so many great aspects to this job. And one of my favorite parts of the job is, as a reporter, every day is something new. I walk into the newsroom and I don't know what I'll be covering. I don't know where I'll be going. I don't know who I will be meeting. And so as a journalist, you have this curiosity, you chase after a story and you don't know where the story will take you. You don't know who you'll cross paths with along the way. And so I could be covering anything from, just last week I had a story air on this. It was a feature story on an incredible mother in the city that I cover. I got to do some cool feature stories on artwork in the city, and you just really meet a lot of creative and amazing people along the way. But that being said, there are some challenges. Today's an example of that. I covered a difficult story of a 17-year-old student at a high school who was killed in a tragic car crash. So we cover a lot of difficult topics as journalists. I've covered countless shootings, really difficult crime. During the pandemic, we put our own safety at risk when we were trying to get the news to the public, but we were covering important health stories. But a lot of challenges do come with the job. You're constantly under a deadline pressure. Today, I was live at 4 p.m. and in the 5 p.m. news, also producing a report for the 7 p.m. news. So you have to learn how to work well under pressure, how to meet tight deadlines and things like that. But you also get to cover incredible moments in history. I remember being there when the first vaccines were administered during the COVID pandemic. So there are some challenges, but there are also many positive sides to the job. And so it's really a mix, but each week brings its own obstacles and its own victories. And, at the end of the day, our job is to seek and report the truth and inform the public. And you get to meet a lot of great people along the way.
And it seems to me from what you're telling me now that the positives outweigh the negatives. Is that true?
I guess it depends in which sense. Naturally, as a news station, we cover, unfortunately, a lot of negative things that happen, but we also get to cover some great things. Like I was just saying about this, last week I covered the tallest mural in New England, which was being painted in the city of Hartford. That's the city I cover. So, but some topics that we cover are really challenging, cases involving children being abused or things like that, court cases, just some difficult topics. And so that's why I think it's important, even as a news reporter, I take breaks sometimes from the news. If I'm not at work, maybe not looking at my email 24/7, not looking at my phone on social media all the time. It's important, you take care of yourself, your health, while still staying informed, of course, but just taking breaks where you can.
I think that's a very good, a recommendation, good advice. We all need to be reminded of that, because especially now in an age where we're so much glued and stuck to our social media devices all the time and looking at our cell phones 24/7, especially for you as a TV reporter, I assume this is even more pressing. So it's a good reminder that we need to also take care of our own mental and psychological health. But if I was to ask you, what do you think are some of the most important traits and qualities that should actually exist in somebody who wants to pursue this same career? Somebody wants to be a TV reporter, whether it's a Muslim, non-Muslim, male, female, whatever it may be. What are some of the qualities, traits, and maybe skills as well that this person needs to have?
I think one of the most important skills is just being curious about different issues, different, viewpoints, because I leave for work every day. I leave my own opinions at the door. My job is not to put my opinions on certain issues out there. My job is to figure out what the story is. If it's a political issue, figure out what the Republicans are saying, figure out what the Democrats are saying, and present both sides of the argument. So you have to have this curiosity. You have to have this drive, because sometimes it's not easy getting answers from officials or getting answers from police or getting answers from the general public on a certain issue or things like that. So you definitely have to be curious. You definitely have to be ambitious. This is not a job where things just come to you. You have to work hard to get interviews, to earn people's trust. That takes time. And that's something that happens, over the course of years, and building sources and contacts. It takes a lot of time, but obviously, communication skills are so important. Being a good listener. We always talk about being a good speaker in television and in broadcast, but I think it's just as important to be a good listener, to really pay attention during interviews, to pick up on things so you could ask good follow-up questions and figure out what is really happening. So those are just some of the skills, but I think just curiosity is so important. You never know what you might learn in a story. And something my dad always told me growing up is that it's important to know a lot about something and a little about everything. And that kind of applies to what I do as a journalist, because I try to know a lot about TV and news in this industry, but I could also be covering entertainment. I could be covering sports. I could be covering, crime, government, criminal justice, various things. I don't know where the story will take me. So I do kind of have to just try to learn as much as I can about so many different topics, because who knows what I'll be covering, tomorrow or the day after.
Absolutely. It seems to me like there's a very important toolkit that people who really want to work in this career, they have to master very well, right? And communication skills is definitely one of them. But when we say communication skills, people immediately think of public speaking and they think of writing. And these are two very important skills, but they're not the only ones. So I'm glad that you mentioned listening, because we always say in communication, listening is the forgotten skill. People don't talk about being a good listener. They talk about being a good writer, being a good speaker, but being a good listener is definitely very important. So I'm glad you mentioned that, so that we pay more attention to this, forgotten really not given enough attention skill, which is listening. And also curiosity, definitely, and following the news. I always tell my students at University of Maryland, you are communication students. You always have to follow the news. You spend hours on social media every day. You can afford to spare a few minutes just to find out what's going on nationally and internationally. Exactly. And speaking of young people, Ayah, if you were to give an advice to young people who want to follow a career or really pursue a career in television reporting, what would be your own advice to them?
I would say I completely agree with you, Dr. Khamis. I think it's important students look at the news around them, and, not just nationally or internationally, but even in your own local community. Sometimes local news and the importance of local news gets a little forgotten about. So I would encourage, young people to follow journalists they look up to or they admire their work. Follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram, and ask them questions, reach out, send them an email, send them a message. You don't know what advice they might have. And I would say, don't let failure deter you. Maybe a certain news outlet doesn't accept you for a job. Try again, try somewhere else. You don't know, really, you just need one person to take a chance on you. That was the case with me. I had rejections from other places, and at the time you can be very upset, but I think put yourself out there, connect with people. Connections are so important. LinkedIn is a great resource. Messaging people on social media just for tips and advice, also so important. And then for me also, what helped me so much was my internships. I tried to establish good relationships during my internships. My first internship led to my first news job. I remember the last day of my internship, I left my business card with the executive producer, and sure enough, a few months later, they had an opening just as I was graduating, and that's how I got my foot in the door. So it's connections, networking, putting yourself out there, and don't be afraid to just ask someone for advice or tips. And again, just watch the news around you. Turn on the nightly news, turn on the local news, turn on the national news, turn on the news from, what are the liberals saying? What are the conservatives saying? Expose yourself to different viewpoints too, so that you don't kind of pigeonhole yourself and only see one filtered side of the reality of what's happening.
Absolutely. These are all very important tips. And I really like the part about networking. There's this saying, if you're not networking, you are not working, right? Mm-hmm. So you always need to value that. So I always tell my students, you really have to network and you have to do internships. So when you graduate from the university, you don't just have A's and B's on your transcript, but you also have internships under your belt. And that's going to help you to get your foot in the door. And your own example is definitely, really speaks to that. But, there's this also culture, especially in Arab families, where the families want their own children to be either doctors or engineers. Maybe the second best choice would be lawyers or, graduates from business administration or MBA holders. These are the types of careers that Arab parents or Middle Eastern parents in general favor for their children because they're the best paying jobs. But definitely we need to have more representation. We're going to talk about representation in a moment in the media. So what would be your own advice to Arab or Middle Eastern parents when it comes to their own, influence on their children in terms of career choice and choices in terms of their own studies and their own work at the university and after graduation.
I think you raised so many great points, Dr. Khamis. And yeah, there is this sense that you're not successful unless you go into medicine or you go into engineering, or, okay, yeah, maybe you can become a lawyer. But I think it's a really problematic way of thinking. And how many Muslims, how many Arabs or Middle Eastern families get frustrated when Muslims are misrepresented on TV or there's a negative spin on a story involving Muslims? Well, we really can't be complaining unless we're actively trying to fix the problem. And are we supporting the people who are putting themselves out there? Because it's not easy to put yourself out there as a hijabi, as a non-hijabi, as a Muslim reporter. It's not, because you're going to subject yourself to hate. You're going to subject yourself to a lot of negativity, maybe from the general public. So that's why I think it's important Muslims and, the Arab population, non-Arab population, we collectively come together, support the people who are in these roles. And yeah, if your child wants to go into media, they want to go into communications or journalism, support them. Don't push them away from it, because if we want to see change, we can't see change with just one person. I can't change the perception of Muslims through the media in all of the United States. It's going to take a lot more than that. I think we have a role, an important role, and that's to help support those who are in this profession and encourage people, hey, look, there are a lot of different opportunities. And if we want to see change and we want to see the narrative surrounding Muslims change, then we need to actively try to support those who are trying to break into this field, because it's not easy, but we also need to do a better job of supporting those who are trying to enter this profession and supporting them when they are in the profession and encouraging them to, study journalism and to study communications, and that you can be successful even if you're not a doctor or even if you're not an engineer. No disrespect to those professions. Of course, they're so important, but we also want to make sure, we're supporting those in communications and in journalism.
And if you're not telling your story in your own voice and in your own words, somebody else is going to tell your story, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be accurate. It's not going to be representative. So I really think it's very important for Arab/Muslim/Middle Eastern families to realize the importance of journalism and the importance of television and radio and broadcasting in general, and people who are working in social media and all avenues of communication, because they are our voice. They are the voice of the Muslim Arab community. And if we don't tell our story in our own voice and our own words, then we're going to face misrepresentation and marginalization and stereotyping. And that's going to be what we're going to talk about right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain. Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
هل تلقى أطفالكم أحدث نسخة من لقاح كوفيد-19؟ لقد تم لغاية اليوم تطعيم أكثر من 5.5 مليار شخص بلقاح كوفيد-19 وأثبتت النتائج أن اللقاحات كانت فعالة حيث قام الخبراء حول العالم بإجراء الاختبارات اللازمة ليكون اللقاح آمناً وفعالاً. اللقاح لا يحميكم أنتم وعائلتكم فقط بل يحمي المجتمع كله. قوموا بواجبكم من خلال التحدث إلى مقدمي الخدمات الصحية أو زيارة michigan.gov/kids-covid-vaccine. رسالة من وزارة الصحة والخدمات الإنسانية في ميشيغان.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're discussing today on The Bridge the first Hijabi TV reporter in Connecticut, Ayah Galal, and her story. Ayah, thank you again for being with us today. We're really happy to have this conversation with you. And you mentioned to me before we started the program something very interesting, which is there are other Hijabi Muslim women on American television. Can you please give our listeners and viewers some kind of idea about who they are, which stations they work for, and maybe other Hijabi women who are working in other television stations, maybe outside of the US as well?
Very good. Thank you again for having me, Dr. Khamis. So excited to be here today. And yeah, fortunately, I am not the only Hijabi on US television. So I'm happy to say there are several other Muslim women on the air, and we're a small group, but we have come together with the help of social media and just kind of connected with each other. There's Tahira Rahman in Texas. She's in Austin. She actually just had a baby. But she is someone I looked up to because she was the first Hijabi TV news reporter in the US. And so we've formed like a small group message that we have with a few other Muslim women in broadcast television and kind of just shared our experiences, some of the challenges we've gone through. We've had some Zoom sessions together, also with Janella Massa. She's in she's in Canada. And she became, I believe, the first Hijabi news anchor in Canada. So I think this just goes to show the importance of us coming together, supporting one another, and making sure we're holding the door open so that other Muslim women can follow into our footsteps if they are interested in working in TV news. But I think it's also important because this is a challenging profession. There are good days, there are bad days, there are really hard days. And when you have a supportive network, it just helps so much when you could share your unique challenges. I know we've had conversations about the hardships that come with finding professional television clothes as a hijabi. I remember it used to be really tough for me finding out how I'm going to dress professionally on the air. And fortunately now, I think with the emergence of more stores online and things like that, there is more hijab friendly clothes out there. But those are some of the examples I can think of off the top of my head. So fortunately, the number is growing. We want it to continue to grow. And I think, if you find any of us on social media, we'll probably be more than happy to share some of our advice, any tips, any of our words of encouragement to just try to encourage more people, more Muslim women to not doubt themselves, to enter this profession and to know that they can do it if we have been able to do it.
And I think there is one Facebook group, Muslim American Women in Media, which is a group that really connects, Muslim American women who work in the field of media with each other. So going back again to the point about networking and also tapping into social media, things like LinkedIn, Facebook, and other social media platforms as a way to create this kind of networking and this kind of professional collaboration and cooperation, which is very important because we have to pull each other up And that's not just for hijabi women, it's for everybody, every profession, every group needs to have some form of solidarity and support for each other in order to grow and in order to help and support each other. There are also hijabi, TV presenters and anchor women, not just on American television networks. I've seen some, for example, on Al Jazeera English. You want to comment on other stations and other, networks that have also employed hijabi Muslim women, Ayah?
Sure. Yeah. I think my thoughts on that are, again, like I said earlier, I think on-air talent should reflect the diversity of the communities that are served. And I know for me personally, and I think I speak for others when I say this, in no way does my hijab prevent me from being able to tell a story fairly. I can still find the facts. I could still do the research. I could still conduct the interviews. Yes, this is an important part of who I am, but in no way does it make me any less capable of doing the job.
Absolutely. And let's talk about the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling, not just for hijabi women, but for women in broadcast journalism and in the media in general. It is a fact that there is still a lot of discrimination and hardship when it comes to women's entrance into this important and competitive field. There is still a lot of male dominance in this field. It's very hard for women to really, walk up the ladder and really reach the top of the roof, as they say, in terms of success. Many of them are still at entry-level jobs, which is important because that's how you make your career. You don't start from the top. You have to, start from an entry-level job or a junior job. But it's also harder for them in general to really climb up the ladder and to really reach these, top positions in the field of media, journalism, and broadcasting. So I want you to comment a little bit, Ayah, about the glass ceiling. How real is it, and whether you see any kind of breakthroughs and progress being made there?
Yeah, I think it's a very real challenge. And I mean, I think of evening news, major US news outlets at 6:30 p.m. when the evening news comes on. We used to not have any women anchoring the evening news at that prime time. But now, Nora O'Donnell anchors the CBS Evening News. So in many ways, we are making progress. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. I think, after the uprisings following the death of George Floyd, a lot of newsrooms had serious conversations about what does diversity look like in newsrooms. And I think we are making improvements. We are learning how to become better in many ways. And of course, it varies from newsroom to newsroom. But I know more newsrooms are making a commitment to try to make sure that different communities are being covered fairly. And how are we making sure to not marginalize certain groups, to change the narrative of how, groups are covered, whether they're Arab or whether they are Muslim or regardless of whatever race or ethnicity. But I think we're headed in the right direction. Of course, it's still a challenge as fewer people are watching news in a traditional way. Fewer people are turning on the TV to watch news. Now more and more people are getting their news from social media. So it's evolving, and I think we're making progress in many ways. There's, of course, definitely more room for improvement, but I think we are slowly heading in the right direction.
I think so too. Although I really think there's also a lot to be done. Like you said, I do agree with you that we still have a long road and a long journey ahead of us. But as they say, the million or the 1,000-mile road starts with only one step. So taking small steps in the right direction is definitely very important. We make this kind of change one woman at a time, and hopefully one generation after another, we're going to see definitely breakthroughs and a lot of improvement in terms of shattering the glass ceiling and seeing more and more women reach not just entry-level jobs in journalism, broadcasting, and media, but also senior positions, and becoming, maybe CEOs of big, journalism institutions or companies, newspapers, and television stations as well. Ayah, we cannot, end the conversation without talking about Islamophobia. Islamophobia is real, it's alive and well, unfortunately, and it takes so many different forms. And one of the most important forms is misrepresentation of Islam and Muslims in the media, especially Western media. So I wanted to get your take on this issue and whether you see any kind of changing trends, narratives, any improvement. Where is this actually playing out, or how it's playing out recently in recent years when it comes to the coverage of Islam and Muslims in Western media?
Yeah. Well, I can think back on, my time as a child, and anytime I saw Muslims on the news, it usually meant there was a terrorist attack and it was something negative. And sadly, I did not see coverage of Muslims in a positive light growing up on, local news, on national news. And it was an unfortunate reality of growing up in a post 9/11 era. And so I think now, fast forward several years later, we are making improvements, and we are seeing many ways how Muslims are a part of the fabric of this country, and they're contributing to society in so many great ways, whether it's through different professions like medicine or media. So we have come a long way, but that doesn't change the fact that, yeah, there are long histories of Islamophobia within mass media. And that's part of why I wanted to enter this profession. I saw firsthand the way Muslims were often misrepresented through the media. And so I think, the change starts small. It starts with more Muslims entering this profession and helping change the narrative. For example, just by me being myself as a Muslim American in my newsroom, I can sit in our morning editorial meeting or, talk with people in the communities that I cover, hear from them on stories they want covered. For example, like I said, that Ramadan iftar that I got to cover, no other reporters were invited to cover that event. I was told, the community would be comfortable with me being there. And that's an example of a positive story that might not have gotten told otherwise. But it just goes to show, like when I was growing up, there wasn't coverage of Ramadan or Eid on news outlets, but I am seeing, more and more news outlets are covering these types of stories. Again, there's room for improvement, but I think we're slowly becoming more and more understanding of, different religions and different holidays and how they are celebrated, and conversations on whether more school districts should have Eid off. So we are seeing more of these stories trickling into our newscasts, but I think it's important that we continue to highlight the advancements, and while also understanding there's definitely room to improve, but by, just being a Muslim American in my role, I have Muslims who reach out to me with potential story ideas. And even if maybe I can't cover them because it's out of my coverage region, I can pass it along to a colleague or try to encourage our newsroom managers and producers that, hey, I think, this is an important topic. We should cover this story, or we should cover, this Eid related story, or we should cover this Ramadan related story, which, might be an issue that might not have been advocated for had there not been a Muslim in that, morning editorial meeting where those big decisions are being made.
Absolutely. So you really have an optimistic outlook there. Just like an optimistic outlook on the glass ceiling and shattering the glass ceiling, you also seem to be optimistic about change being made in the right direction when it comes to countering and combating Islamophobia. And it does take a village, right? It takes a village in order to see this kind of change. But you really see some kind of positive trends going on in the last few years. I mean, certainly, for example, under the Trump administration, there is no question that there was a lot of escalation in terms of Islamophobia and Islamophobic rhetoric, and it spilled over into different domains. We saw the Muslim travel ban 1, Muslim travel ban 2. We saw Muslim Hijabi women, facing harassment on the streets, sometimes physical attacks, Islamic centers and mosques being attacked. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. Are you seeing some kind of change in terms of all of these different aspects, in addition to also the media coverage in terms of Islam and Muslims?
I think, yeah, I am seeing change, and I think it also may vary from maybe state to state. In Connecticut, fortunately, for the most part, you can safely walk down the street and not have your hijab pulled off. So that being said, though, I myself have personally had negative experiences. I remember in middle school, my first year of wearing the hijab, a classmate pulled off the hijab. I remember being called a terrorist. So things are still happening and continue to happen to Muslims, unfortunately. But I try to have that positive mindset. I think things are getting better. And I think it kind of circles back to this job. And I really do believe it when I say it. I think there's a special power in storytelling. And when we tell our stories, when I share my story, and when we really sit down and get to know each other and listen to one another, that is how we combat this Islamophobia. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen, easily, but it happens in levels like I hope deep down, you know, when someone turns on the TV and sees me as a hijabi just doing my job, and, you know, I'm not saying, hey, look, you know, I'm a Muslim doing that. No, just me simply doing my job, reporting on a certain issue impacting the community. They could say, oh, look, you know, she's a Muslim and look at her, you know, she is a part of this state, a part of this country. She cares about the communities that she covers. So that's my hope. And I try to hold on to that positive outlook. I think, yes, we, of course, like I said earlier, we still have so much work to do, and it's not going to happen overnight. Change will not happen overnight, but I think we are turning a new leaf, and I think we will get there eventually, but we also need to continue ensuring that more and more Muslims enter this profession, whereas previously a lot were maybe deterred or were rejected opportunities in this profession. So we're getting there. It's going to take time, but I am optimistic that things will continue to get better.
And I love your optimistic spirit, Ayah. Like, you're always having this positive outlook and very optimistic outlook, which I think is great and the most needed actually in this day and age. I just want to highlight two very important things you mentioned. One of them is the power of the storytelling. Absolutely. You know, when you are on TV, when you are on radio, when you are on social media, you are actually telling your story in your own words. And in the past, you know, there were so many barriers. You have to have like a $2 million studio in order to be able to broadcast a program. Now you can do it from your own, you know, laptop in your own living room. Everybody can become a producer and a consumer of media at the same time, play this kind of dual or double role, which was not possible in the past. And the other thing you mentioned is also community engagement. And that's another very important point, because the media, of course, is very important and representation on the media is extremely crucial. But at the same time, interpersonal communication, face-to-face communication, getting to know people on a personal level, on a deep level, being part of our own communities and being part of the issues that really touch our own communities, you know, what's going on in terms of the school board, right? Education, curriculums, you know, the street safety, environmental safety, you know, gun control, all of these issues that really touch our own lives day in and day out. I think Muslims need to have more and more voice and more input in terms of community engagement. And again, remind our parents and, you know, the grandparents and parents in the Arab/Muslim communities to encourage their own, you know, children to go into journalism and to allow us to really raise our voice collectively as a Muslim/Arab community in the media. We'll come back to this very interesting discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Kushat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kushat's Mediterranean Market in Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New concept products and design. New location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood 734-744-9796.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to my program, The Bridge, a monthly show bridging different cultures, communities, and faith traditions. Watch The Bridge on America's Voice of the Arabs Network on all social media platforms. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're discussing today with Ayah Galal how she really paved her own way and her own journey to become the first hijabi TV reporter in Connecticut. Ayah, one of the honors you really earned was being selected as one of the most influential 40 under 40 by Connecticut magazine. Congratulations on that great honor. And I want you to give our listeners and viewers an idea about what that means and how you got selected for this great honor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that was a pleasant surprise. I opened up my email one day to someone who had sent me a message saying, congratulations, you were selected as one of Connecticut Magazine's 40 under 40. So this was just a nice little, way of being recognized for having an impact on the state of Connecticut. Essentially 40 people who are under the age of 40 get selected to be featured in the magazine, and their stories are shared, and basically it goes into just how they've impacted the community, and that is how they got selected. And so I was selected for my work in journalism and becoming the first hijabi on-air reporter in the state, and just having this unique journey, because being a trailblazer is not an easy journey. I think we tend to think it's more glamorous than it actually is, but you have a lot to figure out along the way. There are ups and there are downs, and there are easy ways or easy days and not so easy days. But it really was an honor being selected as one of Connecticut's 40 under 40 for the year of 2023.
Absolutely. And congratulations to you again. Mabruk. We are so proud of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Such a nice honor.
And I want to now end with a very important question, which is what's next for Ayah Galal? At this young age, you were able to achieve so much, mashallah, and you were able to really do a lot of great stuff. But I'm sure you also have other dreams and other ambitions that did not come true yet. So what comes next for you?
Thank you. And that's a great question. It's something I ask myself often, and a lot of people ask me as well. But I'll start by saying it's an honor to be sharing and telling stories in my home state of Connecticut. Like I said in the beginning, I was born and raised in Connecticut. So to be reporting on the news in my home state, it's just such a tremendous honor. I mean, I have teachers who watch me on TV, friends and family members and neighbors. And it's just really just so amazing to be in my home state telling stories. In terms of what comes next, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I would love to do more anchoring. I am currently doing mostly field reporting as the Hartford Bureau Chief at my station. This Saturday, I'll be filling in at the anchor desk. And so I think, anchoring is a position where we definitely do not have a lot of Muslim or hijabi representation, especially in the United States. So that's definitely something I would love to do more of, just anchoring in the studio as much as I love field reporting. But I definitely would love to do more of that. But again, it hasn't been easy getting to this point. So I'm happy where I am, but I do often think about next steps. People often ask me, do you want to go to the network level? That's also maybe a possibility one day. So I'm not entirely sure what the immediate next steps are, but those are just, some things that come to mind at this point.
And I think the anchor woman role is different, definitely, from the reporter in the field, from the correspondent in the field. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that's going to be like your next step or your next ambition, to become an anchor woman, maybe for your own program, or, maybe start with being an anchor woman for news in the studio, which I think you're doing every once in a while. You said that before. Sometimes you fill in for some of your colleagues, and sometimes you appear as an anchor woman on television. But maybe, I'm just saying, that could be your next dream, to become an anchor woman in the studio, maybe having your own show as well.
Right. Yeah. These are questions I have thought about, and, I don't have the exact answer, but it's, as we say in the industry, stay tuned, and we'll just have to see where my journey takes me next.
Well, I don't have any doubt that you're going to definitely make a great journey moving forward, just like you're able to get to this point in your journey so far, Ayah, and you're still in your 20s, I should say. So a very young lady being able to achieve so much in such a short time is definitely an inspiration and a role model for many of our young women and young people in general to look up to. Congratulations on, making it that far, and best of luck with your future journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khamis. I appreciate your kind words. The encouragement means so much, and it really is just such an honor. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with that, we come to the end of our show today. We come to the end of this episode of The Bridge. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and viewing, and stay blessed and take care. Goodbye.